hello students, welcome back. So today we are going to see question number 3. Okay. So question number 3, A and B. 2 questions per day, no? So this question says, elaborate upon Buddha's metaphysical middle path. So metaphysical middle path is what question is centered upon. What is its relation with Buddha's ethics? Okay. Now in philosophy, the word ethics has a specific meaning and not the meaning that we know from GS4. Not that they are opposite or anything of that sort, they are connected, but the context here is different. What happens, as you know, for any thinker, philosopher, there are like anybody's philosophy means what all things that we automatically understand, the epistemology of the person, I mean philosopher, the metaphysics of the philosopher, the logic of the philosopher, the ethics of the philosopher, and aesthetics. Now, aesthetics is not a very mainstream thing, but these 4 things are very mainstream. That is, what is his theory of reality as to what is real, what is not real, what is ultimately real, like that. What is epistemology? That is, how do we know that reality? What are the ways to know it? What are the different ways of valid sources of knowledge? What are the different types of knowledge and things like that? That is epistemology. Then comes logic. Now, logic comes into picture. Basically, logic is about language. That is, in what language, in what way the philosopher is putting those things. Because what happens when you have your own philosophy, perhaps it's like this. You know, you have your own reality, your metaphysics. You have your own epistemology for that reality. Okay. Now how would you explain it to others? How would you put it so that it makes sense? Because unless something is logical, it cannot make sense to someone else. You might have had experience which you might find it difficult to explain, okay, but because you have your own experience, it is the truth for you. But how would you communicate to someone else? That only can happen through the concept of logic. Okay. And what is ethics? Now, what happens when you have this set of things with you, these 3 things in your kitty, that is your theory, your knowledge, and your logic. So what comes into picture is, now, like for example, if some philosopher tells you that this is my epistemology, this is my theory of reality through his logic, then the automatic next question will be, okay, so what to do now from it? Okay, what is to be done? What is to be done after kind of listening to this philosophy? Okay, simply अब जैसे हम बोलते हैं कि इसका अभी करना क्या है? So that conduct, that practice is what ethics is called. So some practical activities, acts, okay, some conduct, that is called ethics. So basically, yes, obviously it is about living a good life. Now here good life means then, you know, ethical, moral, best, superior, most desirable, most compatible, and all that. So whatever whoever says about what to do next, okay, like what happened in Buddhist thing, Pratit Samutpad is the philosophy. Okay, there are different ways you know the things, but epistemology of Buddha is not part of our syllabus much, except for the thinkers who talk about Bahya Anumanvad, Bahya Anumeyavad, Bahya Pratyakshavad. Okay, they talk about reality and the knowing. We have Shunyavad, we have Yogacara school also, Vigyanvad, like subjective idealism. That is there. But basically, the question is about if this is the reality, okay, and this is how you know the reality, then this is what you should do, that is practice. That's what the word ethics means here. So don't get confused by anything else. Basically here ethics means eightfold noble path. That's what the indication of word ethics is. Anyway, so coming back to the point. Now, question says, elaborate upon Buddha's metaphysical middle path. What is its relation with Buddha's ethics? Now, metaphysical middle path. Middle path means what? Avoiding extremes. Metaphysical is in reality, about reality. So basically, the question is asking, what is and how is Buddha's conception of reality, wherein Buddhism or Buddha avoids extremes. So his theory of reality, avoiding extremes, is what metaphysical means here. Okay. So, and by the way, this is a 10 marker, 150 words. Okay. So how would you write it? You know how to do it. Imagine 2 pages because it is 10 mark. That's what UPSC has been doing. Then first you write intro, then subheading 1, then subheading 2, then critical comment, and then conclusion, right? Like that. This is what you are going to write. Now, what would be the part of intro? Now, generally, this is very metaphysical middle path. So, basically, your introduction must talk about Buddhism being Gnostic school briefly, okay, and middle path being central theme, wherein middle path in central theme means avoiding extremes. So, avoiding extremes, that is what Buddha has also preached, not just in metaphysical aspects, but also in other aspects of practice and basically ethics. In ethics also there is middle path, right, where Buddha tells you to avoid extremes. Extreme sorry, extreme pleasure is also not good, extreme austerity also not good. That's what he himself has followed also, he himself has done also. Okay, then comes first subheading. So subheading will be metaphysical middle path, right? Second subheading will be relation with ethics. Okay, then comes criticism. Now, criticism is basically of whatever we will be writing here. So, as we already know, critical comments or criticism, and then comes conclusion at the end. That's how you are going to write this question. Then comes, now what is metaphysical middle path? The first and foremost, see, pratitya samutpadvad in itself is middle path of satkaryavad and asatkaryavad. So satkaryavad says effect pre-exists in the cause. Asatkaryavad says no. Okay, effect does not pre-exist in cause. So basically, it's like two extremes. There is no effect inside the cause means there is no relation between effect and the cause, kind of. Like, what is the relation between the two? Nothing. So, Satkaryavad is like having absolute relation between the two. Like, one is completely coming out of it. Like, there is nothing in the effect that was not in the cause. Whereas, in Asatkaryavad, it's not the case. So comes Pratyuta Samutpadavad. So, what does it say? Dependent origination. Now, origination is new thing. It originates, but it is dependent. So, effect is a origin dependent on cause. So, it's a middle path. That's how it is, middle path. So, that you have to mention and you have to give the examples and how you have to focus on Pratyuta Samutpadavad. Then also another concept is about eternalism and nihilism. So, eternalism and nihilism, middle path is momentariness. Here middle path is Pratyuta Samutpadavad. So, Kshanikvad, theory of momentariness, is also metaphysical middle path. Now, this is about theory of causation. This is about reality, existence, being. Now, there is another thing with respect to Kshanikvad, that is being and non-being. Middle path is becoming. These 3 points would be explained. These 3 points would be sufficient to explain the concept of metaphysical middle path. Some of you have mentioned Nairatmyavad as middle path. Now, I understand Nairatmyavad do follow from Pratyuta Samutpadavad only, but to call it middle path, we need to establish as to how two extremes have been, kind of understood, and then how the middle path is been carved out. Because when we say no soul theory, it is clearly no soul, nothing eternal. Okay, and but there is rebirth. So there is there continuity? Is there no continuity? There are a lot of debate with respect to Nairatmyavad. So that's why I also don't like to mention Nairatmyavad as a middle path, because it's very difficult to find two extremes. Though I understand Nairatmyavad is connected to it. Okay, I completely understand Nairatmyavad is flowing from Kshanikvad only, Pratyuta Samutpada only. But to put it in the form of middle path as the question demands is difficult. So these 3 will be enough. Now comes relation with ethics. Now, 2 aspects, as we already talked about, 2 aspects are very important. One is about austerity, one extreme, and extreme or pleasure, other extreme. So he clearly mentioned, and he himself lived like that. So let's not live extravagance, live life of extravagance on one end and austerity on the other. What one should do is have a balanced life. How the balanced life will be there? As far as the body is concerned, that much needed things you should supply, and do not starve your body with that, with respect to that. But obviously don't get into too much sensuous pleasure. This is one ethical aspect. But the most important thing is about the eightfold path. Now, how? See, all the 8 steps are samyak something. Now, what is samyak means? Samyak means balance, appropriate. Basically, the connotation of samyak is also avoid extremes. Okay. So somewhere one of the pointers in the under this subheading should talk about samyak. Another pointer should talk about avoiding extreme pleasure, avoiding extreme austerity. And here, extreme austerity and extreme pleasure, you need to mention for example, in the sense of some instance of Buddha's life where initially he had lived very extravagant life, and then later on what happened is he opted for very austere life, wherein he kind of realized that this is not the way things should be done. So he came back to the normal, where as far as sustaining the body is concerned, that much food and supplements you need to give, otherwise even nirvana is also not possible. Okay, then comes critical comments. Now critical comments are basically Shankara's critical comment about Kshanikvad. Okay, then Pratyuta Samutpadvad. For that matter, you can talk about criticism of no soul theory. Now here the central point of Shankar is even change, or for that matter becoming, is happening in the background क्या है इसका? Permanence. So he says even the change is happening in the background of something permanent. That is, if everything is changed, then you will never be able to know it unless that change has to be perceived or conceived in the background of something, and that background should be permanent. Okay, so the permanency of the background is considered to be the most important thing here. So that's what Shankaracharya's whole thing, his whole middle path is like, without the extreme there cannot be middle path, right? Theoretically, what do you mean by middle path? Means the two extremes are assumed, even in the thoughts for that matter, but still two extremes are assumed. So you talk about becoming as a middle path. So the word middle itself is very dependent word on extremes. Okay, so middle path is very dependent kind of theory. Okay, same is the case with Pratyuta Samutpadvad. Either it is you talk about Satkaryavad being a theory of causation, or Asatkaryavad, that is Arambhavad, as theory of causation. But by saying it is dependent origination, you are neither here neither there. So it's very, what Shankaracharya also says, it's very problematic kind of theory. Even Kshanikvad, criticism of Kshanikvad is about like, crime is done by A and punishment is given to B. That is also not good. So these points will be covered for criticism. And then comes conclusion. Okay, what would you write in conclusion? Conclusion is about, basically, as we normally do, a bit optimism kind of about Buddhism, as to how Buddhism gave something new to the world. Buddha's philosophy is very practical philosophy, and nirvana is very achievable thing. Ethical, moral aspects with respect to the society also has been brought in by Buddha's middle path, and it has inspired many and things like that. So these kind of things we can add in conclusion. So normally what happens, if you write the answer, the conclusion becomes very automatically derived, and it should be in that flow. Don't try to bring some different kind of, some not so compatible kind of conclusion and chipkaw it there. Don't bring it and stick it from outside. Let it be part of your answer. So if you write the answer, automatically summarizing is one of the way, whether you want to summarize whatever is written. But summarizing is okay only when the question has asked for you to touch 3, 4, 5 different aspects, then it's better to summarize. Or the conclusion also can be in the form of your interpretation. Maybe if the question is asking what do you think, what is your opinion, then that can be larger conclusion. Or another way of writing conclusion is kind of a futuristic way. Futuristic way in the sense, if this has been the case of this philosopher, and this philosopher future not in the sense of current affairs future, from this philosopher onwards, how philosophy, especially this is applicable in Western philosophy. So how, like for example, Descartes, this method of doubt or mind body dualism gave the important concept for further subsequent philosophers to work upon, subsequent rationalists to work upon, things like that. Okay, so this is the first question of which you are required to write the answer, and I'm sure most all of you have got the evaluated copy. Please work upon it. See, those who are having any further questions, so we are planning to have a Zoom call live when where you will be yourself asking questions, talking, we directly talking to each other in a way, all the people on Sunday, this Sunday. I don't know what would be the date. 9th, I guess 9th of October. We'll inform the timing on the group to you somewhere in afternoon or late afternoon. We'll see. Okay, so let's have that. And whatever questions you have with respect to whether I am doing it correct way, whether there is another way, another better way of doing that thing or not, whatever you want to ask, you can ask. Okay, let's go to the question number B. So this is A and this is B, right? Now question is, what is Buddha's Arya Satya? Question is simple. Arya Satya kya hai? Okay, and what is the significance of second Arya Satya? Now here you understand this is very important aspect of the question, though it seems it's a later part of the question, but this is a important aspect of the answer that we will be writing. Now question is about 15 marks and it's about 250 words, right? So 15 marks means you have to imagine how many pages? 3 pages. Okay, now as you already know, sorry, number 1 is intro, number 2 is subheading 1, number 3 is subheading 2, then subheading 3, then critical, and then conclusion. So I think by now you might have already mugged up these things. Now, what would you write in introduction about what is Arya Satya? Okay, noble truths. It's about truth having highest significance. That's what he means. And Buddha's life and his philosophy is revolving around 4 noble truths. Buddha's 4 noble truths is the most cardinal feature of his philosophy. Okay, and things like that. Then comes, you talk about 4 noble truths. Is your subheading. Then comes second noble truth. Detail में. Then implications of second noble truth. And third, then comes critical comments. And then conclusion. Right? Critical comments. Obviously, the critical comments from Charvak, no nirvan, nothing. Shankar, especially about second noble truth. Okay. And then conclusion. As you know, conclusion you can write about four noble truth is perhaps the most important philosophical concept, that is most popular philosophical concept among even ordinary people. Okay. So four noble truths, you write about life is suffering, there is cause of suffering, there is cessation of suffering, there is way to achieve it, 4 points and some explanation, one liner of each point. Then second noble truth, focus on this. Then it talks about suffering, cause of suffering. Then it talks about pratyuta samutpadvad. Okay. Then it talks about dwadas nidan. Okay. If you want, you can write these 12 links and things like that. Then implications, or you can mention significance. So you talk about Kshanikvad, Nairatmyavad. So Kshanikvad, Nairatmyavad, okay. These things are following from even Sangatvad, Apohavad. These are implications of second noble truth only. Dependent origination gives rise to Kshanikvad, and Kshanikvad gives rise to Nairatmyavad, like that. So it happens significance, or you can talk about implications. Then comes Shankar and Charvak criticism, that content you already know, that that we just talked about. Basically content is similar, okay, but point is what you would be writing in answer is very important. Now you understood why, I'm pretty sure those who are having questions with respect to, or doubts with respect to writing a proper answer, you by now have realized that these subheadings, having the idea of subheadings beforehand is very, very critical for you to write better answer. Very, very critical. Okay. Then comes conclusion. Now, as we talked about, conclusion is about four noble truths being the most well known of philosophical concept. Even among the common people, Buddha's four noble truths are most known to the common people also, and the whole Buddhism philosophy is standing on it, standing on that four noble truths, most cardinal feature of Buddha's philosophy and Buddha's life, inspiring many coming later to him. Okay. So as I said, futuristic thing you can talk about, or general greatness of Buddha's philosophy you can mention there. So that's all. If you have questions, as we already discussed, let's meet on Sunday. So thank you very much. See you for the next question.